helps our building out in many ways. Parent Academy is something that the district is re-establishing, right? We had it before COVID, and now we're bringing them back as a way of making sure that students, parents, guardians, families, the community have insight and connection directly to the school. We want you to be a connected part of all of our students' education. Good evening. And because of that, we want to make sure we're available to you. So we have presentations like this on individual topics, so you can come as they're meaningful for you. And tonight, we're talking about how to get support for students who may be struggling academically, specifically our IRS process and some of the other pieces. As I mentioned, Dr. Lazovic and Ms. Orr. One of the things we try and do in Parent Academies, and we'll be doing again tonight, is to unpack the alphabet soup that is sometimes public education nowadays. We have lots of terms for the things that we do and we use and we try to make sure students are successful. We live in them every day. They make perfect sense to us. If you're not working with them every day, we completely understand that they may be confusing, intimidating, or frustrating at times. And so part of our goal tonight is to unpack these. You'll see all of these. INRS being Intervention and Referral Services. RTI standing for Response to Intervention. Our 504 sounds like a number that we're talking about. It's not Dalmatians. It's actually another process that we follow. CST is our Child Study Team. Those are members of the Special Services Department that help individual students. And IEP, as an example, the Individualized Education Plan. All of these will be touched on today. These are just some of the things we're hoping to unpack for you as we go through the presentation. So, first things first. Students come to Ridge High School, we want them to be happy, we want them to feel safe, we want them to be successful. And so at any point in time, if a student's not finding success in any way, what we always ask, both the student first, but then also certainly the parents, guardians, and those at home, reach out directly to the teachers or the individual staff members who are working with your child on an everyday basis. That's always the first step. From there, we have an unbelievable counseling department. We have 8 school counselors who, they work so hard to make it seem like they have 20, and other staff members in the counseling suite we'll talk about in a little bit, but they are there, and they stay with your student for all 4 years. They build a relationship as soon as the students enter the building, and they stay with those students through graduation. Separate from that, we have an incredible health office, 2 full-time nurses, a secretary, and we have rotating nurses that come in. Those nurses, as Ms. Orr, I'm sure will attest to, know everyone. They welcome everyone, they want to support everyone, they cheer everyone on, but they're there to help the entire building. After those steps have been taken, if necessary, you certainly reach out to administration at that point. When you reach out to us first, we end up having to turn around and go talk to the teachers, the counselors, or the health office anyway. So we recommend you kind of follow that pattern. When you come to us, every grade level has an individual assistant principal that stays with that grade level and loops with them all 4 years. So Ms. Howard is now the freshman, grade 9 administrator. She will stay with that grade level as they move to 10th, 11th, 12th, and graduate with that. And then she loops back down. And then finally from there, if we go through the entire process and we're still trying to figure out what will help a specific student, that's when we call in additional professionals in the special education department. That's the process that we recommend we kind of go through as we're trying to find support for students. As we're finding support, there are all sorts of programs. When I came here, I was blown away, having worked in many other districts, with the number of programs that this district has invested in across all schools, but here at the high school, where I'm getting most of my experience. All of these things that you see here are programs in the building that we use to support students with specific needs. Our MAP program provides a safe place for students that are struggling with certain things, academic support and individual support. We talk about study strategies, math seminars, our English language learner program. Those are all specific academic support programs where we have professionals who are highly trained in a specific area to support students as they're dealing with certain issues that we know people are dealing with in our community. Effective School Solutions is an outside organization that supports public schools with trained counselors. And so students who usually are receiving help outside the building then receive not in lieu of and not on top of, but specific support from a trained counselor working with that student to make sure that they are successful in school. They work very closely with the administrators as well as the other counselors, our health office, and then the teachers directly. Essential elements of English language, again, we have those kinds of programs for people who are coming to us and looking to be academically successful but need support, again, with English language. And then there are programs that we offer students who are already struggling, such as our intervention programs, and something that Ms. Orr has kind of led the way on this year, really the first year, right? Our tutor.com, not just person-to-person resources, but making online resources available that our staff can monitor, support with, and have conversations with the parents and the student as the student works through that. So these are all things that we provide.
So I&RS, and you might hear it very quickly, so you might be hearing I with the letter NRS. That's often what people hear, but it's I&RS, does stand for Intervention and Referral Services. It's an umbrella term, right, that encompasses all of our supports that we can give our students. So we have students that come to the I&RS committee that have academic needs, behavioral needs, social and emotional needs, attendance needs, all sorts of different, we even have health concerns that come to us in the committee. And I do say us because I sit on the committee and I believe in this. So this is a really wonderful support. It is something that is state mandated. So the state has mandated that all public schools have an I&RS committee that oversees all of the support services that are available. You may have heard of this before. The New Jersey multi-tiered system of supports guarantees that all students follow a supported database process in order to get the help they need. So here's how it works. We identify what the issue is. So we decide, okay, this is what the student is struggling with. We determine what the intervention is. What are we going to do to help the student? We go ahead and we watch and we progress monitor. So we make sure that the student is making progress. We meet again, we talk, and we're going to talk about this whole process. But the whole idea, and I love this image because it is that circle, right? It never stops. We're constantly meeting again and talking and saying, no, that didn't work. Oh, wait, that worked. And we'll keep going until we figure out the best supports for each student. You may have seen this triangle before, right? We've been doing this triangle image in all different variations for several years now. But this is basically showing you that every student starts at the bottom with a tiered level of support. So tier 1 happens in the classroom. It's those supports that are accessible to any one of our students. It's things that the teachers do as good teaching practices, but may stress even more for those students who are struggling. Tier 2 we give in small groups. So it might be a teacher saying, come for extra help. We're going to do a little extra practice. I'm going to check for understanding. I'm going to break your task down so I make sure you hit all the benchmarks that you need to. Tier 3 is more of our individualized, right? We set goals for the students and we say, this is something you're struggling with. What can I give you in addition to what you're getting in the classroom to help you reach your goals, to help you make progress? If students have made it through Tier 1 supports, Tier 2 supports, and Tier 3 supports, that is when we start talking about the idea of referring possibly to the child study team for special education evaluation. It's important that you understand this triangle is a general education triangle. There's so many wonderful things that we can do within general education, and we want to make sure that parents and students are taking advantage of all of those great supports we have at Ridge High School.
So speaking of those great supports, we try and take it from the parent perspective, the home perspective, and what can you expect? How do I provide feedback through the I&RS process? And so we reach out to you. If we get to a point moving along that triangle where a student's struggling and we want to invoke this process, the counselor actually reaches out to you, as it says, and they collect specific information from you. We're going to talk about some of the forms later. The key piece here is that we reach out to you. Okay, we make sure that we initiate and welcome you into the process. Even if you're not physically here in the high school, you're a part of the team, and we need your perspective, because you see the students at the end of the day more than we do, most of the time, and depending on how many activities they have. But so we're going to ask you to complete a feedback form, and that feedback form is really specific. We're going to talk about it a little later. We want to know, what you're seeing, etc. We want to understand your child from all perspectives so that we can provide the exact right system to help your student excel here while they're in school. The school nurses follow up. Ms. DeAngelis is our direct contact to the IRS team, and she follows up with everyone. She reaches out constantly. All right, so the level of service I think you're going to find when you get into this process of people reaching out to you because we want your feedback. How are things going? Constantly, once we're in the process, that cycle of progress monitoring, how are things going? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? We know that students will present differently in school than they may at home. And so making sure we understand the whole child. And then, of course, we have these meetings, and the nurse, the counselor, getting information from you, they come to the meeting as the advocate for your child and for you. They need to understand what's going on because they become your child's voice. This is what we're seeing, this is what the parent is saying, this is what they're seeing at home. They really sit at that table to advocate on behalf of your child, make sure we get the exact right plan set up so that your child is successful. And then after the meeting, we come back to you to follow up with, okay, here are the next steps, these are the things we're going to progress monitor on, here's the timeline, and that way you're always part of it. You're always part of the team as we go. We don't just have a meeting and forget, that's when the work just starts again. And so we always kind of bring everybody into that process.
One of the unique things about having a middle school child, a high school child, is they were a part of this, right? So if you're in elementary school, your elementary school student does not know this whole process is happening. They don't know the supports they're getting and what we're doing behind the scenes. In the end of middle school especially, and really throughout high school, they already need to be an advocate. So that school counselor is working with them, teaching them, this is how you advocate for yourself. What do you need? What are you struggling with? And how can we help you? So while we do value, the parent's opinion is not the only opinion we take. We also take the student. After the process, as Dr. Lazovic said, the counselor reaches back out to you as parents. They also call back in the student. So your child will be hearing things from you and the counselor. And it is that team effect that we really want to push.
We like to show that unified front.
Yes.
On the same page. But again, to reiterate, the most important thing here at Bridge is that we want students to develop their own skills, self-advocate, self-assess, so that when they leave us and they may not have this system surrounding them, they can kind of rebuild it for themselves because they were part of the process the entire time here at Bridge. These people that you're looking at now, these positions, these are all members of the team. And so you notice I mentioned the assistant principal. Yet another advocate for the student because they will be building relationships with their class. It's amazing how they know not just the 450 kids in their class are assistant principals, know almost everyone in the building by name as they walk by, but they really get to know personally the 400, 450 kids that they're under their charge in their grade level. The school nurses, I mentioned the two of them, they take great pride in knowing the students who walk the building. Our teachers are there seeing what's going on in class. A child study team member is there to help us with instructional methods to see what else we can try, how we can be creative to reach a student who right now may not be finding success. We mentioned the school counselor and the school assistance counselor. The student assistance counselor is yet another person, a trained, licensed person in our counseling suite to work with students specifically one-on-one. And they're a member of the team as well. Our supervisor of special services, Ms. Orr, is here. And then any other support staff that are working with the student that would be valuable in the process, as well as, depending on what we're seeing with a certain child, we may bring in other staff members who have specific areas of expertise. All being connected, around the child so that that student can be understood, heard, parents are welcome into that process as well, and then as a single team, we hopefully create a plan that student responds well to.
So often parents will say, what do I do? What does it look like? How does it work? And this is basically kind of like the simplified version of how it works. So a parent can come to a counselor and say, something's going on, I really could use help, I don't know why my child's struggling, what do I do? The student can go to the counselor and say, I'm really struggling, I need help. And then teachers also can come and say, I'm noticing this is going on with this student, what can be done to help me? We will take requests for help from anyone who is involved in that student's life because we know that everyone has a vested interest in helping the child. We will gather all information. That means anything as parents you can provide us. Medical documentation, social history, like a background. What is going on at night? How late are they staying up? How much homework are they doing? How long is it taking them to do homework? What are their extracurricular activities? All the different pieces of information. In addition though, not only from the parents, every single teacher that works with that child gets a form to fill out, and it's actually really great. I'm very happy how we do it now. It is one form that all the teachers fill out simultaneously within the same week. And what's great about it is they each see the other's feedback, right? So imagine the English teacher is saying, wow, this student is participating in my class and actively involved, and they're doing their homework, and all is great. And then we see the math teacher, and they're like, they're not participating at all, they're not raising their hand, they're not doing homework. All of a sudden now the science teacher looks at it and goes, oh, that's really interesting, I'm seeing two different children. Where is the child I'm seeing? And suddenly we have this incredible picture of what the child is going through on a daily basis, right? Where are they having their strengths? Where are they having their challenges? And we start to sort of tweak a little bit of, what is going on and what's happening in this class that's not happening in this class. It's amazing what we've uncovered by looking at the teacher feedback. So we gather all of the information. We have the school nurse, as you mentioned, right? And the school nurse has, if your child came through our system, right, that file that goes with them through elementary school, middle school, is now in the high school. So when I tell you that they've got that folder goes way back to when your child was in elementary school. And they can start looking through, what is your child's history? So we really do look at all the feedback. We look at test scores, we look at grades, we look at attendance records, tardies, all kinds of things. Once we do that, we have this meeting and we review all of the information. The counselor comes as an advocate, as well as the nurse as an advocate, for you as parents and the student. And we talk about what is all this data that we're seeing and what do we think we can do. The next thing we do is we make a plan. So at that very meeting, we are not going to wait, you're not going to hear from us in 3 weeks. That very meeting, we're going to make a plan and we're going to say, here are the things we're going to do very specific for your child to help your child make progress. Then we are going to come right back to you and say, here's our plan. And we're going to give you a copy of our plan. The counselor is going to bring in your child and say, here's the plan. This is what you're going to do. What do you think? We are then going to implement the plan. That might not seem like an important step, but it actually is a very important step because that's our chance to talk to the teachers. And we're going to say to the teachers, this is what you need to do, and this is the data we need you to collect. These are the information we need you to collect, right? And then we are going to see how it goes for approximately 8 weeks. After about 8 weeks, we start the process again. We go back to the teachers, we gather more information, we get all that data they've been collecting. We touch base with the student, we touch base with the parents, and we say, how are things going? It's been 8 weeks. At that time, one or two things can happen. Things are going great. I think they're going so much better. Like, yes, we've done good. Keep going. Or, no, things are not going well, not any better. We're not seeing progress or things are getting worse. Okay, back to the drawing board. What are we going to do now? What are we going to try? We continue that process every 8 to 10 weeks until we've really got it. Sometimes, when we hit the nail on the head, a student no longer needs a plan. The student may have learned what they needed to learn, the teacher's got a good flow going on, and the child is making progress. So we take a step back. But we always say, if something is not working, say 3 months down the road, come back to us, and we're going to start again. Because the counselor and the assistant principal know the student, they are going to continue to track your student throughout the year. The teachers are now made aware that we are working with this student. This is a student we are trying to make sure makes progress. If the teachers start to go, oh my God, the grades are dropping, right? We hit that like springtime, spring fever set in, grades are dropping, homework's not coming in, we come right back to the table.
It's all about, it's a beautiful table, as simply put as we can make it so it's understandable. As Ms. Orr said, though, it's highly complicated and it's incredibly time intensive. That team is committing a ton of time to make sure that each individual student is getting what that student needs. And while the process is the same, the conversations that go on, really student-centric, so they're all very different. And everyone's there for one goal, which is to make sure the student's successful. With the hope, as Ms. Orr said, when we find the right plan, the student starts to learn these skills so that moving forward, they need less and less from all of us, home and school, and are doing more and more of it on their own. So again, when they leave us, they're going to be able to build systems around them that help make them successful. And so, speaking of that team, there's a ton of communication that goes on. And in this slide, which again will be available online, You'll be able to click on all three of these. And the first one I want to talk about, the procedural safeguards. It's a list of things that we guarantee to you that have really been mandated, that you kind of sign off on saying, yes, I'm aware this is what we're doing to make sure we're doing everything in our power to keep your students safe. All right, and it's an agreement that we have together as adults saying, this is how we're going to help this track. Ms. Orr mentioned the parent feedback form for INRS. It is a long form because we are looking for as much information from the home as you can provide us. As Ms. Orr mentioned, that communication between the math teacher and the science teacher and the English teacher, well, we also understand, as I said before, that the students may present differently at home. Math teacher's going, oh my gosh, Ms. Orr's wonderful in class. She's always asking for help. She's doing a wonderful job. And you're saying, that's not Mrs. Orr at home because she gets home and she's falling apart. She can't finish her math homework. I don't know what to do. And so we have to have that communication, all 360 degrees of it, as we try and help each individual student. And then the INRS process breakdown, that form lists for you everything that we're talking about today, with a little less humor. You read through the document, it tells you exactly what the next step is, so that you know what's coming. You can refer back to it at any point in time. So that's what those are for.
Yeah, and if you are feeling like your child is struggling and you go to the school counselor is going to send you these forms, right? They're going to say, here are the procedural safeguards. These are your rights. You have to sign them so we know that we're all on the same page. Here's the questionnaire to fill out. And we've actually redone the questionnaire over the last year with people who have done this process and say, what information do we really need? And we got rid of all the stuff we really didn't really need.
And reiterating, we come to you with it. So as this process is
Yep.
initiated, the counselor does this. We get this stuff into your hands. You don't have to go digging for any of it.
So you've heard me talk a little bit about when you get there, we're going to make this plan, right? So there's different kinds of plans we can put into place. The plan that we're going to talk about first is called the RTI plan. It's response to intervention. It is exactly what it sounds like. The idea is that we determine what interventions or strategies we are going to try with your child. And then, what are we looking for? Your child's response to the intervention. Does it work or does it not work? It is specifically made for your child. So it's not like I just go in a file cabinet and pull out, oh, yep, this is the plan for this child. We go through each individual concern and develop the plan based on your child's needs. And I have written many, many response to intervention plans, and not one has been the same. I do this at the middle school and high school. And so sometimes we see a child who starts with a plan that looks one way, and then all of a sudden, it kind of merges into something else, which is great because their needs change, the plan changes with them. So one of the important things about the RTI plan is that this is where we are going to meet every 8 to 10 weeks. We're going to monitor, we're going to collect data, and we're going to come back to the table. Not every plan, it has us coming back every 8 to 10 weeks. So sometimes a parent will come to me and say, nope, I need a 504 plan, which we're going to talk about next for my child, right? That is a plan we'll talk about. That plan, I don't meet with you every 8 to 10 weeks. The committee does not meet every 8 to 10 weeks to talk about a child. So do I think an RTI plan is great? I think it's phenomenal because it keeps that conversation going about your child with, you saw the committee, right? It's a great committee of professionals all focused on your child. So the next plan is called a 504 plan. A 504 plan is guided by the American with Disabilities Act. So you may have heard of this before, right? It's not actually just for the schools. So you may have heard of someone who needs 504 out in the community, right? Basically what it does is it levels the playing field. It gives access for students or people to be able to get to do their job, be able to get to learn. In order to get a 504 plan, we go through an eligibility process. That process has to determine a major life activity that the child is substantially limited in. That sounds very scary and official. Basically what it means is if a student, for instance, can't walk, right, and we know walking is important, what accommodations are we going to put in place to allow the child to access the building, to allow the child to get to their classes? If a child is having trouble with concentration, which is one of the major life activities, what accommodations can I put in to allow that child to still learn in the classroom, even though they're having trouble concentrating? RTI plan because we're trying them out. Is this going to help? Is that strategy going to help? What intervention is going to help? But with a 504 plan, there does need to be a documented disability, and we do have to determine that the child is substantially limited in a major life activity when compared to their same age peers. And that's important you understand that it's a national, right? It's like people all over the country. So when compared to their same age peers, how much are they struggling? And we use all the data to determine that. If a child is given a 504 plan, we review the 504 plan every single year. So that committee that you saw before comes together every year and discusses how is the child doing. You as parents, if your child has a 504 plan, we're reaching out to you, we're reaching out to the student and saying, how's it going? One of the things that people don't know about a 504 plan is it's sort of a use it or lose it, right? So with the accommodations in this plan, if your child is not using the accommodations in the classroom, we do not put it in place again for the following year. And that's sometimes hard for people to understand, but that's really how the legal, the legal terms of this work is if your child needs it, we will give it to them. If they don't need it, we will adjust the plan and give them what it is they need.
And that's going to be a common theme through all these levels, anywhere in that triangle and beyond the triangle, is getting students what they need and no more. We want them to learn to do for themselves with a level playing field. And so if there are things in the 504 that you're using, you're finding success now, those things will usually remain. But there were a list of things we had there in case, and you didn't need them for an entire year and you were successful, those things are removed, and then we can move forward with a slimmer, more sharp plan.
We do say it is a living document, so we do tell people if your child has a 504 plan, and let's say everything's going well for a while, and then all of a sudden, things are maybe not going so well, you don't have to wait a full year, right? You can come back to the counselor at any time and say, can we review this? I'm really thinking we need to take a look at this, and we're always happy to meet. We actually meet several times a week. That's how many students we're helping right now. So you've seen this before. I've shown you this. This is the process at a glance. What I want to point out is the very, very bottom now and what is added. So now you will see, did it show up? It did. You will see step 9. If progress is not made with the current plan, the committee may refer to the CST or Child Study Team for evaluation. And this is the special education. People are saying, oh, my child is struggling, we're going right to special education. The way that our committee is structured is we want to try everything we can to make sure your child has had access to all the interventions, strategies, and supports we have at Rich High School prior to just going to special education. So an IEP. If your child goes through the special education process, and if you're interested in the special education process, I did attach a document on the end of this presentation with that process. Your child may be given an IEP or an individualized education plan. This is, again, written specifically for your child. It follows the IDEA laws that are put into place, and often it gives students access to programs that they wouldn't have access to through general education.
So oftentimes in these presentations we go through lots of jargon, lots of facts and figures, but Ms. Orr and I realized to give you an idea of how the process works, it might be better to talk about 4 students. These are not 4 real students. These are 4 composites of many students that we've seen and things that could come up. So you understand how we go about using the process and individualize it based on the student. Hopefully what you're hearing right from the get-go at the bottom of the triangle, all the way through this conversation, is following up with individual students and communication as a whole. That keeps happening. So she talks about the multiple meetings a week. That entire team's getting together. We're talking all the time. Counselors are reaching out to parents. We're talking all the time. We want the students working with the teachers as we are working with the teachers all the time. So whether you're at some point in this process or you're a general education student that's moving very well right now on your own, we still want that communication to happen. And so we're going to talk about Alex, Sam, Ryan, and Jamie. And again, these are not specific to any individual students we've ever had in the building. So let's talk about Alex first.
Okay.
So Alex has some specific concerns. Poor grades in class, specifically in math and in science. And the teachers and the parents are both expressing some concerns. And so process kicks in. We reach out to the teachers for specific subjects, and again, we don't go all across the board. As Ms. Orr said, finding success in other classes, we're talking right now, math and science, and both parents and teachers are reaching out. So, we develop a plan targeting those specific content areas, and then we initiate the plan, we continue the communication and progress monitor, and we look for improvement, okay? All this happens in the classroom. People are trying to make those decisions, the students getting support. Still not going great, so now we reach out to the counselor. The counselor communicates with the student first as well. What's going on, what's been tried in class. Again, think about that pyramid as we move up the triangle. And again, they talk to the teacher as well, trying to gather all that information and present as many options as possible. And then the counselor brings the student eventually and the information to the INRS committee, and we go through that process that we described before, trying to understand everyone's perspective and make suggestions based on the data we have in front of us. And things that the INRS, in this case, committee may suggest. We have after-school interventions. We also have during school. We have opportunity periods in the rest where teachers are available during the school day for extra help. But we have seminar classes, specific classes. In this case, Alex was struggling in math and in science. So we have specific classes targeting those basic skills that allow someone to kind of build that foundation and then be more successful in the general academic classes. Again, tutorial periods we talked about. The teachers are free during the day. Opportunity periods, they're free during lunch. So throughout the entire school day, if you're a student who needs help and you have time off, we are providing it. We want all parents to know. The tutorial schedule is online. Opportunity periods are listed in Sched for your students. They can jump on and either see their teacher during the lunch period or any teachers available through the tutorial schedule. That happens all year long. It's available to any student. We talked about tutor.com, setting things up so you can have extended work and support at home that we can monitor, see how you're doing, gives us more data so we can be more specific in our supports, and then if necessary, creating a full plan for the student with specific interventions in the classroom so that we're keeping the work there and working with the teacher and the student as much as possible to make sure the student, in this case Alex, can be successful in those two classes. And then Ms. Orr starts that clock running, and we get together, we collect more data on Alex, and we will meet again to see how Alex is doing, and again communicate with everyone starting with Alex, including the home and all of the people in the building who are working with Alex on the specific topic. So that's Alex.
So before we go on, do you mind if I talk a little bit about the
No,
potential
jump in.
supports? So I am beyond excited because this year and over the last couple of years actually, we put in some brand new supports that we had never had before. We used some grant money from IDA. We have got some grant money to use, and we put it to good use. So the one thing I want to tell you about first is called the After School Intervention Program. This is a free program, and it's run through the INRS committee. So it's for students who are struggling, who are identified by their parents, their teachers, or their counselors. What we basically do is we split it up into two sections. One section is executive functioning. Executive functioning is like your time management, your organization, you're remembering to hit the turn it in button on your assignment, right? It's understanding how to study, understanding how to just take the overwhelmingness of some of our academic classes and pull it into one place. So we offer 3 days a week, small groups, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes up to 3 students, of after-school intervention where your child can come and meet with an educator and learn those executive functioning skills, right? Those skills that they need. And that's available for an hour, 3 days a week after school for those students who go through this process who we feel need it.
And it's free.
It is free because it's run through a grant. And we have amazing staff who have been board-approved to work with. The math seminars are an elective, right? So often we find out that students might have a study hall or another elective, and we can put that in. Those classes teach and pre-teach and reteach the concepts that they are currently learning in algebra, geometry, algebra 2. So it's a great opportunity for our students to get a little bit extra, and they get credit for it, so it's even better.
And a great deal of one-on-one attention in those classes.
Yep. The other after-school intervention side of it is specific content help. So if we find out that the math seminar is not enough, we might recommend that you work with one of our math teachers for an hour after school specifically in the content of math. Okay? Tutor.com is also new to us, right? It's brand new this year, and it's actually a trial. And the reason we're trialing it is to see if it works. your child is at home and it's 10:30 at night and they come to you, or in this case, Alex would come to their parents, right, with a geometry homework and in tears, and I can't do this, my teacher never explained it to me, and can you tell I have a child, right? And they go on through Clever, which is our online login, and they log into tutor.com. Tutor.com then will ask them to type in, what is your issue? So my issue is I'm struggling with this type of geometry homework, okay? Within 2 minutes, an online tutor, not from our school, but an online tutor will be on with your child, helping them learn the concept that they are stuck on. Will they give them the answer? No. They're not going to give them the answer to their homework, but they're going to say, okay, let's work through the problem together. Let me give you a couple other problems so you understand the concept, right? It is not video, which means no one can see each other's faces. The students can choose just to do a chat where they type. The student can also choose to do an audio where they can hear each other's voices. And what's really phenomenal about it is recorded, which means if the child is now learning from this tutor and has that aha moment, which we all hope they have, and then 3 days later they have the same math problem and they're stuck again, they can go back and re-watch the video. We as a school also have access to all the videos, so we make sure that everything is fine, and tutor.com also will watch to make sure. Students are not allowed to share where they go to school, they are not allowed to share where they live, they are not allowed to share their last names. So it is literally a first name to first name basis. Tutor.com also has supports where you can say every Monday at 4 o'clock, I want my child to get support in geometry. And you can set that up through tutor.com. So again, it is a trial program for any of our students who are struggling, who are identified as needing a little extra support. Students who are in our math seminar program already have access to this.
You mentioned 10:30 at night. It's available on weekends?
Yep, I think they said 361 days a year. They take a couple holidays. It is 24/7.
And we are trialing it, but it is something that we're another educational expert who's not going to give answers, but actually sit and teach, so you don't have to be the ones necessarily figuring out the physics. You can get somebody on tutor.com to help with them.
The other really nice thing about tutor.com is that if the tutor is working with your child and they leave the session and think, oh my gosh, that child did not get it, they email me, I email the teacher, and the teacher then goes ahead and works with the student a little bit more. And this teacher can also see the entire transcript of the session, so they know exactly how the tutor taught the student and what was said. It's brand new, but it's used in a lot of districts in New Jersey, and we're really, really excited about the trial. Ideally, it goes well, and then we can open it up to even more students.
Right.
Do you have a question?
It closes our communications loop for us, even 361 days a week. Yes, sir.
So, any of our child, if they go through Clever, do you find tutor.com, that's the one?
If your child has some kind of additional support class, so whether they're in our math class, which is Motivating Adolescent Performance, a study strategies elective, a math seminar, ELL, ESS, we have
Pretty much any of the programs I had in that slide before, they are automatically then given an account within tutor.com that lives within our Clever platform. So not every student can go into Clever right now, not yet, can go in and access this. We're targeting specific students that need extra support first as we try the system out. But they would log in through their Clever like they would for any of the other apps that are on our platform, and they would then be able to click in if they have an account, which Ms. Orr sets up for individual students. They would then have access to the tool.
And if a child has been through the INRS process, is getting help through the INRS process, we will also be able to give them access to it. The idea is to give it to all students who really could benefit from it and use it that we're currently working with. Okay, so the next student we're going to talk about is Sam. Sam is not consistently turning in homework, which is not, completely unheard of for a high school student, right? But Sam's grades are dropping, and Sam is not really sure what is due, how to submit it, is kind of feeling a little lost in the process. So for Sam, we're going to follow that same process that you've now heard us say before, right? Reach out to the teachers, reach out to the school counselor. We're going to communicate with everyone, and again, we're going to come together and we are going to make suggestions based on the data. In this case, we may again offer the after-school executive functioning intervention program, right? Talking about that organizational piece. We are also going to offer a study strategies elective. This is a semester elective That is every single day. It is one of our experienced teachers who will work with a small group of students. Most of the time our class sizes are about 10, right? We try not to go above 10 too often. And we really help the students, okay, let's check Google Classroom. Let's check Genesis. What is it that you have to work on? And students are also given the opportunity during that class time to work on some of the things. So I have a social studies test coming up. All right, well, let's work during this period on actually studying, developing your strategy. What are you going to do? How are you going to study? This is another elective that can get your child credit, which is great, right? So they're getting help and they're getting credit at the same time. The math elective is called Motivating Adolescent Performance. Dr. Lazovic talked about it before. It is a safe environment for some of our students who often are so bright, right? But they're really struggling to just get that motivation together to sit down, do their work, and push through some of the things that they're dealing with. We will suggest that they schedule times with teachers, go to the opportunity periods, go to the tutorial periods, and the teachers will help them schedule that. And again, we will make an RTI plan for the child and monitor and adjust. Okay.
And then we have Ryan. Ryan's struggling to come to school every day. Struggling with anxiety, and the parents and the staff are obviously concerned. We are, as a public school, we have all sorts of requirements when it comes to attendance, and those are secondary to the health and safety of all of our students. And so when we get concerned about something like this, we want to figure out what's going on with the student, work with the family, and do our best to get Ryan into school. Again, if you look at the process, the counselor initiates it. So the counselor is there for each and every one of our students. Their caseloads are modeled right off of the general expectation for our national counseling service. They work directly with all the students, and as you can see from this, they are key to what we do. They're oftentimes the nexus, pulling in information from all of the different sources and really getting to know the student. We may also involve the student assistance counselor, because in this case we're talking about anxiety, so much so that the students struggle to physically come to school. We also mentioned the ESS program before the Effective School Solutions. Yet another set of trained professional counselors in the building that also help. And then from there, we look outside the school. What other supports exist to try and help the families? We put you in touch oftentimes with organizations that deal with these kinds of issues and provide supports for you even outside the school day. And then the counselor, of course, communicates with the students' teachers and brings everybody together so that, if necessary, we're creating a plan. Those possible supports, as I mentioned before, you've got the SAC, the counselor, and the ESS, where we're having constant check-ins with the student. Communication again. We're not letting time pass with this. Communication starts right away, and we go through that process cyclically so that we're constantly making sure that too much time has not passed, and we're aware of what the student's doing, how the student's doing, and everybody connected to the student is on the same page. And then if necessary, again, we create that plan using data. And then we progress monitor that plan, and we keep adjusting it as necessary. Trying to get Ryan to school.
We've got one more student, and this is Jamie. Jamie is having trouble staying focused in class and at home when completing work. Very typical of what we see for teenagers, right? But everyone is super concerned because Jamie is starting to really struggle to the point where he's not or she's not getting their homework done. So again, we follow that same process that we talked about before. This time we may again look at the after-school intervention program. We may look at the study skills strategies elective, tutor.com, again, scheduling teacher meetings, and lastly, creating that RTI plan. We have a really good team. We have a really good process, and we help students, and we're really proud of that. So, if you have a student who is struggling, don't wait, reach out immediately. And Dr. Lazovic is going to talk about sort of who to reach out to when.
Yes. And again, as we have these conversations, we always go back to, challenge in school is expected. It's what helps foster learning. When we talk about struggling, that's to a whole different level. So think about the triangle. Our hope is that all the students coming through don't need these multiple tiers of support, that we find everything right in the classroom, and that a lot of the supports happen in the classroom. But the communication starts with the student and the teacher. And if your student's exhibiting issues in a specific class, like Alex or Jamie, you reach out to the teacher. That's where the conversation should start. Your teachers will change from year to year as your child's schedule changes. But after the teacher, or in conjunction with the teacher, you reach out to that counselor, because your student's school counselor is going to stay with them for their entire 4 years. Building a relationship, getting to know them, seeing how they've progressed, what works in the past, what doesn't. Every year, new set of teachers potentially kind of relearning your student. They get a lot of help, almost a head start, by talking to the counselor. And if they're working with our students assistance counselor, or with ESS, or with our math teacher, they are getting, like I said, a head start understanding your child and what they need to be successful. So that school counselor is critical, and they loop. The next piece is involving that grade level administrator. Things are still struggling, that's that next level conversation. Before you even get to me, or to a supervisor specifically, talking to that assistant principal, because again, each one of them will loop with your student. They follow them through their 4 years, building relationships. And so you want to build relationships like that, and we're looking to do that. Whether it's email, or a phone call, or actually coming in, depending on what the situation presents. We're here to work with you, kind of in order. Start where you're closest to the student and to work with the teacher. Move to the counselor, and then to the assistant principal. And as part of that, depending on the kinds of issues, you always have access to our health office. Our 2 school nurses who pride themselves on getting kids back to class in a healthy way. They want to make sure you're safe, you're healthy. They communicate constantly with the home so that we're all on the same page. They know and learn from what you see at home, and you know what's going on at school, and together as adults, we're working to support that individual student. And that's how it progresses. Communication, communication, communication.
So, as we said before, this presentation will be available to you. Along with this presentation, here are some additional resources, from the explanation of what intervention and referral services is, to our manual, the tiered systems of supports that we talked about, that triangle that we talked about, a little bit more about our after-school intervention programs, and lastly, if it gets to that point, the Berners Township special education process that was written and attached to this as well.
We don't hide any of the information. We want it all available to you. At the same time, we're also here as people to work with you and explain the information. But we have people who like to read, like to see that these resources are there and posted for you so that you can be as informed as you need to be about what goes on here in the school. But we're here to advocate on your behalf and your child's behalf to make sure that you're fully educated, they're fully educated, and we're finding the right place along that triangle for each individual student. Because ideally, we want every single one of them to walk across Lee Field in that graduation cap and gown, get their diploma, and leave Ridge not only feeling good about Ridge, but solid on their own 2 feet, able to move forward and do what they need to do to be successful based on what they've determined they want to do with their lives. That's our goal. All right,
And just a little plug here, okay? So
Yeah.
this is one of the Parent Academy presentations, right? We do believe in educating parents, and we are really, really pleased with the turnout we got today. So thank you for all of you guys for coming out. If you have a child in middle school or elementary school, please know that a program or a presentation like this will be happening as well for your middle school student. I'll be doing that one. For the elementary schools, my partner, Lisa Vitale Stanzione, who is Special Services Supervisor, as well as the assistant principals of the middle school who run the INRS committees down there, will be doing presentations as well. So there's a lot of other Parent Academy programs coming out. We hope you come out for them and watch for them as well.
They're all publicized on the district website under Parent Academy. And I highly recommend, again, thank you all for coming out. We know everyone is busy. A big part of it, though, is even if you have students, as we mentioned, at the elementary schools, a lot of the information may sound similar. But at the elementary school, there are significant differences, even between the middle school and the high school, and some of the ways we run those individual steps. The other piece that I mentioned, the people. You get face-to-face with the assistant principal, Ms. Stanzione. It's important for you to know who's working with the children all the time. We want you to be an equal partner in this. The school-home connection is one of the biggest and most important keys to a successful education year. And we want to make sure it's strong here at Berners Township. Obviously, I'm worried about Ridge, but I'm worried about Berners Township because all the work that happens at the elementary and the middle school sets us up for success when we get your students for 4 years. So I want to thank Ms. Zor for sure. Right? Do you have any questions? Yes?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. First, I mean, if students not falling into any one specific category, but they want help, let's say student wants some help in some grades, right? Some subjects. So still they can reach out to
Yeah, let me be clear that, again, that's what we want. I mentioned that first slide, that first level of connectivity is your teachers. So you may not be struggling to an extent where you need any of this process, but there's still some struggle. Our teachers make themselves available all the time, and there are a couple of things again. Tutorial is a word we use here at the high school. The teachers have periods in their schedule where they're not teaching and not assigned anything else except to be available for help. So online, there is a spreadsheet by content area. So if you're looking for math help, you see where every teacher is free and what room they're in, and you can email them as a student. The students can do this. Obviously, parents can see it as well, but we want the student to email, reach out to, hey, Mr. Boo, I realize you have tutorial 4th period tomorrow. Would it be okay if I stop by room 412 for extra help? And Mr. Boo will be there to get that extra help. The same thing exists with opportunity period, which is during that unit lunch. We have an hour in the middle of the day, minus lab periods depending on your child's schedule, where students are off and teachers are off. And so they offer these times during the school day. You're also going to find that teachers have extended their tutorials. They come in early and they stay after. And so the school day is kind of extended. If you're looking just as a general education student who wants support in a specific content area or areas, start with your teacher, because there's a ton of time that all of our teachers make themselves available to give you help.
And for students who are struggling with self-advocacy, meaning like maybe your child is not the one who's going to email the teacher, I recommend they go to their school counselor and say, can you help me figure out the best way to reach out? Because that is really a skill that they need to have moving forward with whatever path they take after high school.
And the other piece is our school counselors also run opportunity periods. They had how to write a college essay. They talk about executive functioning. They talk about self-advocacy. They run those kinds of sessions there, and whether a student is self-aware enough and confident to put themselves in an opportunity period on their own, or they talk to their counselor, and the counselor says, stop by during lunch for half of it. And again, they're offered during half of lunch, they're not required. So students can bring their food and eat there. They can just take half of the lunch and then go eat the other half. They can stay all lunch long if that's really what they want. Students get to make those decisions, but the resources exist. You had 2 questions.
Yeah, the second question, let's say any student sign up for this INRS for it. So will that goes to colleges?
So that's a great question. So when INRS is like the umbrella, right, where it says any struggling student can come to this committee, and we will help anyone who is struggling. Doesn't necessarily mean they'll end up with any specific plan. If a child gets an RTI plan, right, which is that response to intervention plan, most students will not take that plan with them to college. Because hopefully by the time they're leaving us to go to college or whatever their path is, we've kind of figured out what works. What we do want is them to take the strategies with them, right? If a child has a 504 plan or an IEP, it is that child's choice whether or not they show that document to their college or not. Some colleges will take the IEP to 504 and look at it and say, these are the things we'll do. Other colleges will say, we're going to start fresh, show us all the data, and we'll go from there. The school will not release the 504 or the IEP to a college without the child doing it. Does that make sense?
There's nothing in the student's transcript that identifies a student with a 504 or an IEP, ever. And so we can't tell them without your student's permission, your student's permission.
And typically it's the student and the parents who actually take that document and provide it to the next place where they go.
So just another level of protection. I mean, we want you to take services when it's necessary and not be worried about what somebody, that's all in our bubble. So you can be successful, build those skills, and hopefully move on successfully without them. But if necessary, those 2 documents based on your choice may follow. Yes, sir.
Well, if my child is struggling with, say, EP physics, but she's not in any of the pilot group that has access to tutor.com, can she get early access to tutor.com to help her?
That's actually a very common question. Right now, we are using grant money. So we're using money through this IDEA grant. And the purpose of the grant is to help struggling students. And so what I have to do is I have to provide back to the state, these are the students that I provided access to the program because these are the students under INRS or a support class. Our goes so well that the district goes ahead and provides it to all students. We hope to know that soon when we see how the pilot is going.
So we have to get our own subscription for now.
So right now, if we don't have that exact resource for everyone, but we are testing out, if it is that successful, we do want to advocate with data why it might be important for all students. And we recognize that our teachers from here are not available to your children necessarily at 10:30 night, and that's when they're doing a lot of their work. So we understand why you're asking the question,
Very much so.
for sure. It is something we have certainly discussed, but we're literally just getting into that pool right now. We're kind of wading in to see if we even like the tool, if it actually works the way we think it's going to work. And other schools have found success, so we're hopeful, we're optimistic, but we still have to wait and see. And second, that we think it's something that would benefit more students, then we have to find different funding. As Ms. Orr said right now, it can only be specific students who are going through a process at this point. But again, what I go back to is, if you're in AP Physics, did you say?
AP Physics.
AP Physics, you want to talk to your AP Physics teacher first and foremost. Before you leave during the day, find that time, email, etc. Be proactive. We teach the kids to be proactive. Don't wait until the night before the test to raise your hand and say, oh my gosh, I'm having trouble through an email, because at that point, you've kind of made it too late. But talk to the teacher. So if you need extra resources, our teachers have tons of ways that they're already helping students. We just don't have this yet for everyone.